Welcome once again to the Arizona Craft Beer Review and Awards channel. I am Matt Johnson, Director of Digital Content, alongside our kind of svelte-looking Johan Warren. You've been working out, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's not completely unexpected.
So we're here.
You blindsided me with that.
I like to blindside Johan every now and then with a little compliment.
You know what? I think it is. It's the haircut.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's all it is. No. Well. It's fine.
Well, you got to work out.
We're gonna cut this out.
We're gonna drink some beers. We're gonna drink some beers today with Josh Johnson from Ranch Hand Brewing, and Josh.
No relation.
No relation whatsoever.
No relation.
You are the director of brewery operations down there at Ranch Hand.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, welcome. If you need some help selling your beer, always pay somebody a compliment, like I did with Johan. So that's free advice. You can have that all to yourself.
Matt Johnson bringing out the Dale Carnegie how to win friends and influence people strategies out here on this podcast. Very excited.
So let's stop talking about ourselves for a minute, even though we are throwing this great festival coming up in October. We'll talk about that, and Ranch Hand is going to be a part of it. So Josh, tell us what that means to you to be a part of a festival as kind of a new brewery here in the state, and to get to meet people at festivals, and what is that like for you?
So, I mean, we've been to a few festivals in the past with Ranch House before we moved up to Eloy. We've been to Great American Beer Fest before, so it's really nice for somebody in Arizona to be throwing something real similar, and hopefully we can get some people out of state at some point, because we're going to make it so rad and big. So let's go.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that's one of the biggest things that we've been talking about with the Guild, who the Guild is organizing the award portion of this. We're putting on the festival itself, and that's kind of one of the part of the conversation has been to create this sort of spirit of friendly competition in order to kind of elevate Arizona beer as a whole, and we're really excited to be a part of that. So. Super stoked that you guys are going to be there. How long has Ranch Hand been open?
So Ranch Hand itself, which is a new production facility up in Eloy, we've been brewing and selling beer since about March, April. Everything kind of started, though, down at Ranch House Brewery in Oracle, Arizona in Saddlebrook Ranch. That was in an active adult community owned by Robeson, and they decided they want to put a brewery in one of their communities and service everybody there, which was genius, because if you think about it, a lot of these retired folks that come out to Arizona to spend the rest of their lives, I mean, they're from parts of the country that the craft beer community kind of grew from. So, I mean, we've got a ton of people there from Colorado, Oregon, Washington, Midwest, you name it. And for them to have a brewery in their backyard, I mean, they were pumped, and I think that's why the brewery did so well there. I mean, we doubled capacity within like 6 months.
That's awesome.
And then we're maxed out again. And we're scrambling to try to do what we're doing now. And then COVID hit. Well, we started canning at that point, and then we're like, well, now we're maxed out again. What are we going to do? So that's when we were forced to build a facility up in Eloy. And we had a lot of questions on, well, is it Ranch House or is it Ranch Hand? Well, it started out as Ranch House. That is owned by the Homeowners Association up there.
Gotcha.
And Robeson decided that, you know, it was getting big, and we wanted to be out from underneath that umbrella and take it and to have a standalone brewery and do what we're doing now. So now Ranch Hand is the one distributing it across the whole state, and Ranch House just brews beer for the community in Saddlebrook Ranch, just to clarify that for everybody.
That's awesome.
Very cool story. I saw that anecdote on the website. I want to talk about that. Let's backtrack on as we crack open a beer here, because you brought a ton of beer, ice cold and fresh off the line, right?
Yeah, I mean, this Pilsner that I'm passing out right now, we literally canned yesterday. So, I mean, I don't know how much
in front of the microphone.
Ooh.
You got to have sound effects when you're doing podcasts, right? So this is the Breakaway Pilsner, and tell me a little bit about this 5% ABV. It's got a cool little can label with kind of a silhouetted cowboy doing his thing down on the ranch. Is that what most of your beers are kind of like, as far as like your brand and how you want to, you know, try to label things? Is it mostly that sort of motif?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point from the beginning was to have a brand and then build build our beer brands around what the brewery is about. And we are in Southern Arizona, and cowboy stuff's kind of a big thing down here. So
tell me about while we try this, tell me about the we mend fences 1 pint at a time. What do you mean by that, and where did that come from?
So that came from, this was genius when it came out, and I'll never forget when it did. It came from the vice president of food and beverage for Ropes and Communities, which is George Atwell, who's my boss. And it's kind of a play on words, and it means more than one thing. So, drinking beer in a group like this has always been kind of a thing. And if you go to the bar and somebody's having a bad day and you're drinking a pint, you just made that guy's day better by, hanging out and talking about things. So, and mending fences is kind of something that you do on a ranch. So Now you got your 2 for 1 on that one.
And so when you were mending fences when it was Ranch House in Saddlebrook, and for a lot of people who might not know, Oracle, it's kind of like northeast of Tucson, kind of north of Mount Lemmon, right? And you said it was a retirement community. So it's essentially like, you're brewing beers for like grandma and grandpa, right? Did they receive craft beer well down there?
They received it great down there. That tagline wasn't around back then because it was still Ranch House. But like I said, these are people that came from parts of the country where, the craft beer movement really started at. And we had a lot of people that they weren't Coors Light, Michelob Ultra, Bud drinkers. They wanted a beer, and that's what we provided them there. And it's something that community is very proud of. That's awesome. Still to this day, there's residents in that community that literally the only reason they bought a house, might not be the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons they bought a house in that community was it had a brewery in it. It was the only one in the world at that time. And I think it still is the only one that's affiliated with any HOA. So
are they still brewing down there?
Yeah. So we got Evan Smith down there who took over for me and Connor, and he's running the show, brewing our 5 flagships. And then he's got free reign on what he wants to do within reason for demographic up there. And he's killing it. And the community seems to be receiving it well.
I think it's really cool and a testament to the beer that you're brewing, that it started as this, hyper local, right? It's like only in this community. And then the demand got so high that you decided to share it with everyone else. And you said you opened Ranch Hand just earlier this year, and you're already distributing statewide, and people are drinking it. So congrats on that, because that's a growth. It's a aggressive growth. And it's only a testament to how good your beer is. I love this Pilsner.
Yeah,
and I'm not usually a Pilsner drinker. Is it a German style?
100%. So we strip our water all the way down to 0, like a lot of people in the valley, just because the water in Arizona is not the greatest.
Yeah.
And
when you say that, what do you mean?
So we run. At our brewery, we'll get into that water situation here in a little bit.
You guys had a unique water situation we learned about while we were learning to become beer judges.
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that. But so basically, we soften our water, run it through carbon, and then it gets ran through an RO, and then it gets ran through UV after that. So our water, when it's coming out, is almost absolute 0. And this beer, water profile in this beer is a mix between, I would say, like a Bohemian Pill style and maybe like a Munich area water profile. Yeah, so you kind of get that real light, subtle
easy,
notes.
Yeah, really clean and crisp and light and drink like crushable. It's a great beer. Good one to start with here.
Thanks, man.
Good one to start with. And so when you say 0, it's like 0 impurities in the water. Is that kind of?
There's like
for like a dummy like me, explain it.
So there's basically no minerals or any content at all in that water. So when we come back in and we mash in, that's when we add what we want to add back, whether it be calcium chloride, calcium sulfate, magnesium, any different kind of salts. To build that water profile that what we wanted. Water is 98% of your ingredient. So you need to be spending time on that to be able to produce a quality product. And we take a lot of pride in that at the brewery.
I think that's something that I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to brewing beer. Especially if you're home brewing, a lot of times you start off just using the water out of the tap, right? Like, because that you don't really think about everything in the water being such a big part of what comes out in the beer at the end of the, that final product. You think about the grains, you think about the hops, you think about, everything else, all the little ingredients. You don't think about how important the water is, when you're right. It's 98% of what you're drinking is water. And if you start with hard water or wet, weird water, then you're going to have a weird beer. So I guess that's a good segue. Unless you have
let's talk about that now. So
and we don't have to go too deep into it, but
explain the story to people, because when you first came to market, you discovered something really, really bizarre in your water, right? What was going on?
Well, we noticed it in a couple accounts. I made some phone calls. Thank God. Called and they're like, "Hey man, I've had your beer. This is not what I would expect from you on flavor wise." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, take a glass of water and throw a bunch of pennies in your mouth, and that's what your beer tastes like." So I'm literally on the brew deck brewing, and I just remember running to the walk-in and cracking open a Ranch Hand Amber. And my assistant brewer, Connor, was there, and I go, "We got to find some sort of glass or something to put this in, because we need to try this, and we need to try it right now." And when we tried it, sure enough, it tasted just like he described it. If you were to take a beer and throw a bunch of pennies in your mouth. So we stopped everything at that point. Well, the interesting thing was that beer was about 3 to 4 weeks old at that point. And that beer did not taste like that a week prior or a week before that or during fermentation or even on the hot side, nothing. So doing some digging and talking to some pretty big names in the industry all around the country, we found out that beer was actually oxidizing with iron that was in the water. And it was taking that oxidation process and multiplying it by, I don't even know what, integer. And it was terrible. And that beer should have been good for another 2 months.
Yeah. So and it was enough to throw off the flavor, even though it was the most minute, whatever measurement. And
right.
It was enough to really, really significantly impact the beer.
And it started on our multi-year, our multi-year beers. So showed up in the amber first, and then our West Coast IPA is like a traditional OG West Coast IPA with a good malt backbone to hold up that malt character. So then it showed up in there, and then it showed up in the blonde, and then it kind of showed up. There's not really any melanoidins in the hazy, and then it showed up in the pills last, because there's not much in there either. So, but what was weird is that beer was like a month old. So now we've got over 100 barrels of product out on account.
Wow.
And now it's like, I'm the one that made it. And I mean, we had a small sales team at the time. And I said, you know what, you guys can kind of give them the story, but I'm going to be the one to call every single one of these accounts and explain to them exactly what happened. I'll take the brunt of that. But I mean, iron, it isn't something that you look for out in Arizona. That's something that you look for in the Midwest, way out east. I mean, these are people I was talking to in like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, way out there. And I talked to everybody in Arizona, and they thought I was nuts.
So this was something that no one here had ever experienced.
No, nobody in Arizona, nobody in California. I mean, I was talking to Mitch Steele, who was with Stone, and he's like, I've never heard of that. So he starts making phone calls. And he talks to somebody on the East Coast, and it's like I literally just got off the phone. It was like I said in the last podcast with the Guild, I just got off the phone with a brewer in Gettysburg at Fourscore Brewing Company, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we deal with that all the time. It's no big deal. You just get this filter and it's over with." And I'm freaking out
in steel country, obviously, is where right.
Yeah. So
is it the water that's specifically coming out of the well that you guys are using?
I mean, the wells in that area they're pulling from some sort of aquifer it's probably got a vein running through it that's got some iron in it.
That's wild.
And
I remember because we used, and this was your suggestion, or I guess your involvement in the judge training process for the awards with the Guild. We used one of the Pilsners that was part of this batch. And, we all tasted it. And I remember just thinking like, there's a high iron content in this kind of morbid, but in blood. And I remember the aroma being sort of like this, the only time I've ever experienced that was at a relative's cabin in Montana that's pulling straight from a well, and their bathroom smells like that because all their water just has a ton of iron in it.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about what your response was like after you called all the accounts and it was time to like, clean it all up. What did you do and how did it go?
I mean, those were a tail in between the legs phone calls. These were not fun phone calls that I had to make. And granted, at that time, we were still at a bunch of accounts that we'd been with that were, actively distributing from Ranch House too. So I had a pretty good relationship with everybody. And even the accounts that I'd never met or maybe even never talked to, because these were new accounts that sales reps met, everybody was super receptive. I mean, especially when we're like, hey, like, this is what happened. It's not going to hurt anybody. It just tastes terrible. And what we're going to do is we're going to credit you guys for that. And we will make sure that we get you beer that is up to quality standards when we get this fixed. I was working 14, 16. I slept in the brewery 2 days during that time to get it fixed. And I was brewing 5 days later. I slept on the floor in my office twice.
Dude, the passion, bro. Like the passion for your craft to do that. Like that's amazing.
Right. Well, that's like your baby, right? I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, when you push out that, you come right out of the gate with, we had a bunch of momentum behind us. We come out of the gate and it's just like crash and burn. Like that was probably the worst feeling I've ever had in my life.
But your response, I think couldn't have been better. I think in terms of getting out in front of it, calling everybody, saying, "Hey, this happened. We're gonna fix it, and we'll make it right." There's no better way, I think, to handle that. And so I think that's a testament to you as a craftsperson, right? Because this is a craft that you do that. I think that's you couldn't have handled it better than that. So congratulations, because now we're drinking this and this is delightful.
Yeah. So we cracked the amber. It is
5.4
Ranch Hand Amber Ale. Cool. What do you call it? I got a ranch father there looking over his crop and looking over his wheat field.
Yep.
So you guys are down in Eloy. For folks that don't know, maybe I know it as like the skydiving place, right?
Yeah.
What else? How would you describe Eloy to someone who's never been there?
So they've got the largest skydive resort in the world down there, which is awesome. We were just there over the weekend, and that place is a blast.
Skydive Arizona.
Yeah, Skydive Arizona. They kill it, man. They carry a bunch of our beer there. I think they've got 4 brands. What's crazy is, I live in Tucson. I didn't really know anything about Eloy until we started building a brewery up there. And Lucid Motors is about a mile away.
Yeah.
And those guys are growing crazy right now. And I think they've got like 3 or 4 more full blown plants they're getting ready to build up there. And then Nikola Motors is the other way down towards Coolidge. So, they're supposed to be, I think Andrew Bowman from the Guild said he looked it up. There was like 57,000 people that live in Casa Grande. That's nothing compared to Tucson or Phoenix. But in talks with some of the people around there, there's supposed to be like 12,000 people moving there in the next like 1 to 3 years out in the middle of Casa Grande, which is cool. So, we've all known it. Like if you're from Arizona, you knew at like some point Tucson and Phoenix are going to grow together, and that's just the middle ground.
So Eloy might be the center of that.
Right. We're dead center.
Yeah.
So, it's
what's craft beer like down in Eloy besides you? Is there anything good?
No, that's it. We're the only. we have the only 2 breweries in Pinal County.
Yeah.
So that I know of. So, there's nothing.
Obviously, down in Tucson, there's tons of craft beer down there. Borderlands to Pueblo Vita, and even go down further south to Tombstone and all that. So
Tucson's got the highest per capita of breweries
So you live down in Tucson. Is there a favorite brewery down there that you like to go to?
I mean, Dragoon's killed it for forever down there.
Sure.
I mean, I love those guys. Tristan and Eric are great guys down there. I'm really good friends with Todd Button down at Button Brew House.
Their Schwarzbier is
so good. I think that's might be the 7th or 8th time Johan's brought up Button Brewhouse's Schwarzbier on these podcasts.
Just, like,
we've only done like 26 of these. So.
Nobody does the Schwarzbier. Like that's like such a.
Is this a challenge?
It's a challenge.
All right, I want to see a Schwarzbier from Ranch soon.
Let's do one. But I worked at a tap room years ago, and we had Button's Schwarzbier on tap, and it was my favorite thing when somebody would come in and they'd say, "I usually drink, Budweiser. What do you suggest?" And I would tell them, like, I'm gonna bring you a sample of something, and it's gonna look weird. It's gonna look not like anything you ever drink before. But like, just try it. And so they'd be like, okay. So I'd bring them this black lager, this Schwarzbier, and they'd kind of look at me all, skeptical. And then they'd take a sip of it and they'd be like, that's so good. I'm like, it's never, the color of the beer is important, but it doesn't tell you anything about the flavor. Like, there are good, sweet, delicious, whatever dark beers. There's more bitter dark beers. There's good, like, sweeter, fruitier light beers. There's bitter light beers. Like, the color doesn't tell you very much. And these are people that always assume that the color told them everything they needed to know about it. So the Schwarzbier just was like a fun experiment for people to like get them to broaden their horizons a little bit.
Yeah, so like I said, let's talk about Todd for a second. So I don't know if you guys know, but we ended up brewing a benefit beer for him down in Tucson with a bunch of us, and then I know Marshall Norris over at Simple Machine.
Yeah.
He did his. I think his was the toughest button to button, I think is what he called it, which was
rad. White Stripes light.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So Todd and I were on a motorcycle ride up on Mount Lemmon, and there was some pretty shoddy road work that was done on the way down. And I mean, I've been on two wheels since I was 4 years old. I raced motocross for a long time. And I remember seeing it on the way up. And when we got to the top, I told Todd, I said, hey man, I'm going to throw my hand up when we get down to this one section. And I don't care where you think you need to go. Like, you need to follow me through that. I mean, it was a bunch of cold patch they had in the road. They didn't sweep anything. It was all loose rocks. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And we're coming down, and I come up to that point. I throw my hand up, and I just remember straight lining across it. So I stayed on two wheels. And then there was like 3 blind corners. Well, I get to the second blind corner, and I just happen to take a peek in my mirror, and there's nothing there. Well, the next corner down is another blind 180-degree corner at the very bottom, which is the first turn. And I just remember getting down to the bottom and turning around, and I was just banging gears. At that point, I didn't even know how fast I was going. And their head bartender was behind Todd, and he was coming down. And I just remember passing him like he wasn't even moving. And I got back up to the top, and Todd was laying in the middle of the road. So we ended up getting him off the mountain and into the hospital. And we brewed a beer called Easy Rider, which we did a hoppy lager collab with everybody, and we're selling kegs for basically nothing to accounts, and all of the proceeds from the draft sales of that will go back to the Button family to help cover medical bills for him. Punctured both of his lungs, broke some ribs, broke his shoulder blade, so messed him up pretty bad. And that's a real good friend of mine, and somebody that I hold dearly in my heart in the beer world and in the personal world as well. So
kidding.
Yeah. So if you guys see,
how long
Easy
ago
Rider,
was that?
Yeah. Let's see. That beer was, I'd say, about a month and a half, maybe. I mean, month and a half, 2 months ish. So if you guys see Easy Rider on tap up in Phoenix, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll put the word out for the
Easy Rider hoppy lager. From Ranchan.
Yeah, so it was me, collab. So Ranchan, 1912, Harbottle Brewing Company, Coppermine Brewing Company, and Dragoon Brewing Company.
Wow.
Okay. And have you been down to Mount Lemmon? Have you taken that drive up there?
I have. I know a lot of people who cycle on there.
Yeah, very popular.
That's also
cycling.
especially on the downhill. Like that's a hazard for everybody, not just the motorcyclists, but the cyclists too. So have they? If they've cleaned it up since then?
I mean, knowing those guys, probably not. But it was literally some of like the shoddiest work I've ever seen done on the roadway,
right.
and it was not okay. And I don't know how more people didn't go down that day. To be honest with you, whether they were on a bicycle or a motorcycle.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was.
So that was only a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yep. He's in recovery. He's doing well.
Okay.
He's
that
back.
was my next
he's back
question.
to brewery. So.
Wow.
Doing great.
That's wild. I mean, I've seen some nasty cycling accidents, but you're going so much faster on a motorcycle. That's super scary. I'm glad he's okay.
Down. I mean, we were only doing, I think the speed limit on that road's like 35.
Yeah.
And I slowed down. I think we were only running like 20.
Yeah.
Maybe like 22, 25 or slower through that section. Cause you might as well have been riding on marbles. It was bad.
That's wild, man. I'm glad he's okay. We'll definitely put the word out, on social and stuff.
Right.
See if we can, maybe you can let us know where they might be carrying it and we could just push it out and see if
I know
a whole bunch of people.
In Tucson, it's been out and around. I'm waiting for the list back from the guild on everybody that's committed up in the Phoenix area.
Okay.
So I'll send you guys an email.
Yeah, let us know and we'll push it out for sure.
Pretty good distribution on that beer then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We brewed a 30 barrel batch of that and we only put it in half barrels. So I think we netted like 62 half barrels on that. So, and then we just had like 27 of them go out last week to Tucson. So we got a few left.
I like hoppy lagers a lot. It's one of the go-to beers here in Arizona.
You all drink it
desert because it's so hot. And
I'll drink it just to help out.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Tell us about this amber. This is freaking good.
But amber is dangerous, man. That's that's what I call our campfire beer. So I love that beer in like the fall time. That's your perfect campfire. Sit by the fire. If you want to eat a nice steak cooked right on an open fire with that, it's money. Or if you're a cigar smoker, that beer with cigars pairs really well.
That's right. That's what I read on your website. It's like that's what people talk about is pairing
with a cigar, and I get a little bit of like caramely sweetness on the end there.
Yeah, so like your old school traditional amber, like they were like back in the early 2000s, late 90s. With those good caramel crystal notes and not overly hopped, where you still get that good malt backbone in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we really focus on is drinkability at Ranch Hand. I don't want you to go to the bar and have 1 or 2 pints. If you're taking Uber and you have somebody to drive, I would want you to be able to have 4 or 5, not have a problem or be, wasted by the time you went home and you enjoyed yourself and you're not bloated. You still feel good and you can go eat a meal or whatever after that. So
yeah, man, my limit's 4. Okay. I can't I'll feel like hungover. I'm 43 now. I'll be a little hungover the next day if I go 5, right? My limit's 4.
I think, it's funny. The people I meet that drink your like domestic light American lagers, always talk about like how if they drink craft beer, like they can only have 1 or 2 because it's like too heavy or whatever. It's all I know. I can feel your thoughts about it. This is the kind of beer that you drink in lieu of that, right? Where you can have 4 or 5 of them and it doesn't feel too heavy and the flavors 1,000 times better.
For sure. For sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's when I drink so much more there.
Maybe it's when I have 5 like 10%ers. That's my problem.
That's a really good segue into this beer because this is the beer that actually started everything.
Okay.
At Ranch House and Ranch Hand.
Which one are you holding up there?
So this is our boo-boo bowl.
Okay.
So
there's a dog on the front. Is there?
We're gonna get into this. So the owner of the brewery and the owner of Robeson Communities, Ed Robeson, is a huge dog lover. And the story I got was Boo Boo was one of his Rotties. So when I came out with this first beer, I was all hot to trot, ready to name this beer. And they came back and they said, yeah, we're naming the beer Boo Boo Blonde. And I went, okay, what's Boo Boo Blonde? And then they told me, and I said, that's awesome, man. So, and the name's always stuck. And that can, I mean, the women in the grocery stores, like Total Wine or retail, even like if they see a tap handle, they go, oh, the dog. And I'm just like, ding, like cha-ching. So, I mean, that was a great idea by, the Robeson corporate guys at the very beginning. And, like I said, that's the beer that started it all. That was the very first beer that we put out of Ranch House back in the day. Traditional blonde, I wouldn't say like honey blonde, kind of like your 805, but
then it would be honey boo boo.
Right.
Nice.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want
that.
That might be trademarks.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We can't be doing that.
So what did you want to name it?
I think we were going to do, it wasn't going to be Breakaway back then. It started with that's 5 years ago, man. Put me on the spot right now.
Well, we asked the tough questions here at Phoenix Magazine, right?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. Put me on the spot.
That's guerrilla journalism right there.
Right. Yeah.
No, but it's there's like a hint of citrus in there, right? You guys
just
put
enough where it's in there.
Just a little. It's not a blue moon, right? Where it's like in your face. It's just like a little bit. It's super crisp. It's so good.
So we use a really weird hop combo in this beer, and people are like, "What? You
okay?
What?" So we use Hallertauer Mittelfrüh hops in this, which is a really like spicy, almost like black peppercorn,
right?
Earthy hop.
Okay,
and then we come back over the top with Amarillo, which is where you get that citrusy note.
Yeah.
And
see, I always thought Amarillo gave stuff that black pepper. Does it do that too? Does Amarillo do that, or is that all like a citrusy kind of?
I mean, all the Amarillo that I have contracted is, I mean, it's pretty piney. It's got some big citrus notes, and it carries a lot of grapefruit with with the Amarillo that I have contracted through Crosby. But I mean, with the Mittelfrüh that we have contracted, it's a pretty spicy, earthy hop that we use and a lot of our beers. I mean, it's in the pills, but you don't get black pepper in that pills because we use it at a different time in the boil.
So why the combination? What was the reasoning behind
that? On this blonde, I wanted it to be totally different than what a lot of people are doing. So I wanted this blonde to have some earthy undertones that you kind of get right in the beginning, and then as that beer finishes on the back of your tongue, you get just a touch of citrus that kind of cleans that earthiness up, so it's not like licking a beet, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it just finishes super clean, and that's why we did that.
See, this is why I like talking to people like you, because when you explain things like that and then you do it while you're explaining it, you like it all clicks.
Yeah.
Right. So as you were explaining that, I took the sip, I kind of let it roll slowly from the front to the back, and 100% earthy on the front, and then it just kind of the citrusy in the back, but it like cleans it all out. I mean, you're right on the nose, man. That's so good. It's so good.
So I mean,
I'm gonna go buy a case of this.
Talking about buying now, you guys, I've come across you guys at Total Wine. The first time I saw you was probably about 2 months ago. IPA right there on an end cap, like. Great presentation there. Like, I saw this. I'm like, wait, Eloy, Arizona? I've never heard of this brewery before. How did you guys get such prime position there in a Total Wine where, I mean, maybe you don't go there. I mean, people go there obviously for beer, but maybe more people go there for wine or bourbon or tequila or whatever. How'd you guys get into Total Wine and, as a fairly new brewery?
Well, I mean, obviously they taste product, and they're not going to buy anything that's not quality, and they're not going to buy anything that doesn't really have a background to it.
That's a well-deserved flex. I appreciate that you put it that way, because it's like 100%. Yeah, totally. I love that.
I mean, and then, sorry to come off like arrogant.
No, it's deserved though. It's deserved though. Like it's true, and it's really good beer. Like it's 100%. I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
I just wanted to know what compliment you paid him. Like I paid Johan the compliment off the top of the show. That was my sales technique there.
Nice.
You obviously have to have something to sell to them, right?
Well, I mean, the good thing is I mean, we have a very strong sales team. with Ranch Hand right now. I mean, an extremely strong sales team that's very experienced.
That's awesome.
And I mean, Ryan Sherman, who's one of our sales reps, had a pretty good in with them and was like, listen, like, I can make one phone call if you guys are ready to do this. And with the quality of the beer, we could get in pretty easily. So we started the process, and it was a lengthy process. And I mean, I thought we were going to maybe get in with like one, maybe two brands.
Yeah.
So then when we get a response back from their buyer, and it was all 5 brands, and they wanted it in all 12 of their locations, and we were like, well, we self-distribute. So we were like, Prescott's a little bit far to drive to right now. Yeah. So we'll do everything except like Prescott Valley, whatever you want to call the area where that Total Wine's at. And I mean, they've been killing it.
That's amazing.
For us. So
is it the furthest away from you guys? Is that Prescott location then?
Yeah. So like I said, we don't distribute to that one yet. The furthest location we have from us right now is probably the Arrowhead location.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's pretty far north.
I don't like going there, and I live here in the valley, so.
I mean,
it's a big valley.
It's a haul, but those guys do really. I mean, they all do pretty much equally well for us. I mean, obviously, there's stores that do better than others, but Arrowhead does really well. Queen Creek does really well. Tempe. I mean, they all do really well.
Yeah,
Scottsdale does good. So
good stuff. Good stuff. So I for the people watching on YouTube, you're wearing the Crosby Hops hat. You get how much? I mean, is that like your go-to source there? And are you guys coming out with a fresh hop IPA?
So I was talking to Brad over at Crosby about doing that this year, and I wanted to do a fresh hop West Coast and a fresh hop hazy, and we were gonna do like a West Coast like OG style pale ale fresh hop, and then just get wild on the hazy, but with us trying to keep up with production right now with these 5 brands, I couldn't squeeze it.
Yeah.
So my goal is next year we'll come out with a fresh hop, because I'm just going to let it out right now. We're in talks with Finley and Crescent Crown up here in Phoenix, just because we basically can't keep up with distribution ourselves anymore.
Right.
So once we take that burden off of the brewery and we can really start focusing more on brewing the beer instead of figuring out how we're going to get the beer out, then I can start doing rad stuff like that and start playing around. But like right now it's like, okay, brew this, it's got to go here, brew this, it's got to go here, brew this, it's got to go here. And like as soon as it's out of the tank, it's gone. So
there you go, Johan. We need to come up with a breaking news sounder. We're breaking news here on the Arizona Craft Beer Awards review video and podcast channel. That's exciting. I mean, I always love a fresh hop IPA. Yeah. I'm glad you guys have that same kind of passion for it, because for one, like, it's a great beer. It's like literally the freshest hop you can get, right? They ship it to you. You're within 24 hours of being picked off the vine. Yep. And you're involved in picking that hop, right? Like you fly up there to Oregon and you go there and you squeeze it between your hands and you do all the stuff that brewers like to do. And, you crush up the hop and you smell it and everything. And then they ship it to you, right? And then you just throw it in the barrel that day and you start brewing it.
Yeah. I mean, when you get the hops at that point and they still stick to your fingers,
right? Like
that's when you know it's good stuff. And like I said, I really wanted to pull it off this year, and with our growth rate right now, we couldn't squeeze it. But I promise you guys, next year when hop season rolls around, it's game time.
And this is the hop season, right? Like right August
now.
to September. Yeah.
Yep. Right now.
Okay, so
we got to talk. So speaking of hops,
yes,
we haven't hit the hoppy ones yet. Hazy IPA and the IPA that you brought.
This is our number one seller.
So this is our
microburst.
Microburst. Yeah, I knew there was a weather theme to it.
See, I'm excited about it because I like hazies. I should have angled that a little bit.
Let me finish my amber here and I'll take a pour of that. Yeah, Johan's a big fan of hazies. He hates IPAs, by the way, so don't pour him that.
I don't hate IPAs. It's so dramatic.
So we get that a lot, and then like we might have to get like his facial expression when he tries this beer for the first time.
Oh, he'll zoom in. Don't worry. he'll put it on stories. Yeah,
he'll be an Instagram reel here pretty soon, right?
because this one changes a lot of people's mind on hazies. We don't, I'm not doing anything real crazy on our dry hop on pound wise. I mean, it's not like milkshake hazy.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just enough where it's there and it doesn't blow your mouth out, and you can still have another beer after this and actually taste what you're drinking.
Right, right.
So
which is the goal.
You don't use lactose in this.
Mm-mm.
So it's funny because I kind of almost smell like a creaminess to it. There's like a creamy aroma to it. So tell me where did that come from?
Aroma. There's so much aroma to this.
It smells like a milkshake IPA.
So our that's all from our dry hop.
Yeah.
And when we dry hop. So when we literally get to a very specific, point in our gravity during fermentation, we throw hops in it, and then biotransformation happens, and that's where the haze from the beer comes from, and that's where those aromas come from. So this beer really starts off on the nose like kind of really melony and berry, and then you kind of get a little bit of citrus like right on the front of your tongue, and then as that beer finishes, it finishes with a bunch of berry and almost like a pineapple if you can really refine your palate on that.
Sure.
So
it's really good. It's really good. Like I said, I like hazies a lot. It's the West Coast IPAs that I typically, when it's like more heavier on the pine and less on like the sweeter fruit, like fruitier kind of notes that the hazies typically bring on. That's where I have a harder time with it. Now, 4 years ago, I drank 0 IPAs. And now, like, Tower Station's one of my favorite beers, period.
Yeah.
Belching Beaver's Phantom Bride is one of my favorite. And those are both, they're not technically hazy IPAs, right? They're not New England style IPAs, but they kind of have that. They have a more
kind of in between.
They're balanced,
yeah.
And I think that's what I always look for. This is delightful, man. This is so good.
So
this is one of your top sellers.
That is our top seller. So like that real silky mouthfeel and just easy to drink.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that beer is 6.4%, but it drinks like it's a 5%er, which is dangerous, especially if you get out by a pool.
Is it bad that for me, if a beer is anywhere between like 4.5 and like 7, it's all just kind of the same percentage?
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's a pretty big spectrum there, bud.
Like 4.5, I'm like that's a good, maybe like a lighter Goza or Pilsner, a lager.
Yeah, but like 6.5, it's fine.
You get up to 6.5, and you're in the IPA range, and that's where you get to where 4 of those or 5 of those are gonna make you wish you didn't drink the night before type thing. So, I like that. I love a good aroma on a beer, and this one delivers on that. Really, really fun. It's fun to drink. Yeah,
it's awesome. Like when so my assistant brewer Connor Krebs, I could be on the brew deck brewing the same beer. I could be on the brew deck brewing our West Coast IPA or any beer that we make, and I could literally have my nose over the boil kettle, and if he is transferring that beer into the bright tank, I can smell it every single time. And that bright tank from the brew deck is about 70 feet away.
Wow.
And I can smell it every time. And I love it every single time.
That's
and
amazing.
That's just, that's something you get as a brewer. And it just like, you just turn around and you're like, yeah, that's why I do this.
I love it. Okay, here's a question for you. If is there a beer that you haven't brewed that you have and you don't have to tell us the recipe, obviously, but like, is there a beer that you have in your head that you have yet to brew that you'd love to do?
Oof. So I've been...
And why is it a cold IPA?
Stop it.
I can answer that. So
that's my favorite new style, by the way.
So I've really transitioned to being like a big lager guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like Weedy down at Tombstone, he kills it. Weedy crushes. And so does Ryan Sandlin up at Dark Sky. Just crushes it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to have like the cleanest like Helles that you could get, and you just like, I want one of those beers where you just can't stop drinking it, where it's one of those and it just literally be able to carb it up to where it needs to be and be able to get it into a can at that point because it's actually carbed where it needs to be.
And because that takes a lot of time, right? How long was it? 12 weeks?
Like our Pilsner that you had, the first beer that you had, that beer is 100% naturally carbonated. Wow. So we use a spunning valve on that, and that beer is the only CO2 that's introduced, and that beer's life is when that beer is being filtered and pushed into a bright tank.
Yeah.
It doesn't even get like, okay, we got to touch that up a little bit because it lost a little carb during filtration. Like, it's done, and it's money at that point. So like, we would want to do the same. Like, I want to do the same thing with the Helles at that point, and just brew something absolutely crushable that you can't stop drinking. Is like what I would say.
And I love that because Helles lagers are one of my favorite styles. Because of their crushability, but also it's like a distinctive like liquid toast. It's like it's a really good piece of toast in liquid form. It's just really tasty. And you're right. Dark Skies Helles is terrific, and Tombstones is too. Like two of my favorite of that style. And so I'm looking forward to it. And when you do it, you'll have to come back we'll do this again with that, because that is literally probably my favorite style of beer.
And I even want to kind of get it like just a little bit weird on it because they do have that like toast note to them.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of want to give it like that cinnamon toast crunch.
Okay.
Like feel to it. So
I am here for that.
Do on that. We're going to probably do a pilot batch of that before next summer. But like, I'm more of a traditional brewer, and like as you can probably tell by the styles you're having, there's nothing like, we don't do anything like real crazy right now. I can, and I have done it, but like those cards are still in the back pocket because it's still early. So
there's a lot of breweries that do, a Pilsner, an amber, hazy. They don't necessarily do them really well, right? Like those are the traditional beer styles I think that a lot of breweries do. But how many breweries have you been to where you try their hazy and you're like, that's a hazy, or you try their Pilsner and like, that's a Pilsner, and you're not like excited about it. These are traditional, they're classic styles, but they're really well done. Like, they're really good. So if you can make really good sort of like those standard styles, and you can make them really, really well, and you build a brand off of that, and people see you as like, oh my gosh, their Pilsner's really good, their hazy's really good, their amber's really good, and it's not weird and experimental, and it's just a good classic beer, then you start introducing some like fun twists into them, and people, I think, will pay more attention. Because you've already established yourself as like, I could do these beers that a lot of people do, but I can do them better. So I think you're doing it right, man.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. So we've got like I didn't bring it because we don't have any in cans right now because they're all out on sample, and we got a bunch of kegs that are getting ready to go out. But we do a wild strawberry rhubarb Berliner Weiss.
Okay.
That
I like that.
That was actually, I think it was mentioned, what was that, 3 years ago before GABF got really like pounded by COVID.
Yeah.
So I think backporchdrinking.com was the one that was like best beers from, like top 5 beers from day one. I mean, we were a nobody 3.5 barrel brew house out in the middle of nowhere in Oracle, and we made top 5 best beers on day one at GABF with that beer. Like that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I didn't brew it.
So cool.
I didn't brew it. I haven't brewed it since. And then we literally had accounts going, hey, remember that strawberry sour kind of like rhubarb thing you did like 3 or 4 years ago? Think you could do that again? And I'm like, nah, maybe. And then like 10 or 15 more accounts asked for it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like,
give the people what they want.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome, man. Well, if you come out with a cinnamon toast Helles,
that's the plan.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah, so
I want to be there the day you crack that one.
Huss does that one, that cinnamon toast, cinnamon Kolsch crunch with King's beer. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Comes out during Beer Week.
Yeah.
They do a collab with King's
good.
Beer and Wine. I'm pretty sure it's Huss that brews it, and it's a Kolsch that tastes like cinnamon toast crunch.
Oh, it does.
Dude, when I was a teenager, a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch was my breakfast.
I'm telling
the
you,
whole box.
You can go to King's. I think it's only available at King's. They don't like can it or anything. And it's gone like in day one, whenever they do it. You've had it, right, Josh?
Oh yeah, that beer is fantastic.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah. I want to pour it over cereal. It's that good. Right.
It is. So it's a good combination. Do you look for stuff like that to obviously, podcasting is the same as probably brewing. You probably look to others as inspiration or maybe to steal ideas or copy ideas. I mean, you look for stuff like that.
I mean, if you want to talk about a segue into what we're getting ready to do right here, that would be the best one I could
so
ever.
This is the ranch hand.
Apparently,
IPA.
Matt planned all this.
Yeah.
He's just killing the segues.
Was this scripted?
I was reading it. I look right into his eyes. I read his mind.
Yeah.
Talk about my IPA.
I'm 31, and I've been brewing this beer about 16 or 17 when I made that deal with my dad. And started brewing, not this exact beer, because it probably would not have tasted like this back then. This is our Ranch Hand IPA. So this beer has a ton of Sierra Nevada influence in it. Like that's when. Yeah. So when I started
you can tell
brewing
that from
this,
the color.
The OGs, man.
like OG West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
And so where they still had that good malt backbone to them that held up that good hop aroma and bitterness. Before it got to that, okay, we're going to start doing 90 IBU beers. Oh, we're going to start doing 100 IBU beers. And what was that, like the 1,000 IBU? What was that? I know they had some crazy beers, like 1,000 IBUs.
I've been to a bunch of breweries that just put like too many. They're like, we don't even, it's too much. Like I think Fate has their Fatality IPA that literally on the menu it says like too many IBUs. Yep. They don't even tell you how many it is. Because for a while there, it was like a competition of who can do the highest IBU beer.
But then your mouth for like 2 days, you're just like, it's just like puckered because it doesn't even know what to do with itself at that point. So, I mean, like this beer, you still get those sweet caramel notes. And then like right on the back end, it's like, oh, hello, there's some Amarillo and some Citra.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, people are like, well, what's your favorite beer? Well, my favorite beer to brew is this one because this is what kind of got me into brewing. And this beer literally started in a garage a long time ago. So,
I love that.
Very first batch of this. I hope my mom's going to watch this because I'm going to get a kick out of this. Very first batch of this beer I ever brewed. It was in glass carboys.
How old are you?
Like 17, 18. So
you're brewing it, but you weren't drinking it.
You're not allowed to.
Yeah.
So
you tell the retirement community, what do you think of this beer I'm brewing?
So anyway, I brew it and I'm like, where am I going to put this? Where it's like 68-ish degrees. So like the coldest spot in the house was my parents' bathroom. And they had a huge like jacuzzi tub. And I was like, hey, Mom, I'm going to throw these 2 5-gallon carboys or 6.5-gallon carboys in your bathtub with no water in it for like the next 2 weeks. So you're going to have to take a shower for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So like,
for those of you who don't know, carboy is like a big glass jar essentially, right?
Yeah. So I'm pumped because like everything went perfect on brew day. Like I hit like pH was money on the mash. Everything was perfect on numbers. And I remember coming home from school the next day to go check on it because they're glass and you can see everything. And it's just like, oh, that's cool. You can see what's going on. And she's got the blinds open. So now the beer is light struck and it smells like a skunk. And I just remember screaming. Like I thought my mom's like, what? I didn't know. Like it was really dark in the bathroom. Like I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, you just ruined the best batch of beer I've ever brewed in my life. Like, and like we still talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what like comes up. And I'm like, yeah, my mom, she ruined the very first batch of that I ever made in the garage.
Okay, so I got to ask, because when I was 17, 18, I had no interest in beer. I had tried it and did not like it. I don't know if I've ever met anybody that at 17, 18 was like interested in brewing craft beer. Like, tell us.
I did that for a capstone project for my chemistry class.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
the beer
love
making
that.
process.
That's always my theory, is that brewers were really, really good in chemistry and wanted to make that continue. That was the only class that they ever wanted to go to. Like, and then, PE got in the way or math got in the way. It's like, no, I just want to do chemistry stuff. This is cool.
So you brewed beer for a chemistry project.
Yeah.
How?
And I got an A on the capstone project. I couldn't taste
okay, that's what I was going to ask. Right? How did that go? Like, did the teacher try it at school? Like, did you bring it to school? Like,
I mean, we're like on a podcast, and I can't legally say any of those things. But like, I got it.
Well, you'll have to tell me afterwards.
I got an A on the project.
I love that.
So it went pretty well.
And did you grow up in Tucson? Is this
I was
Tucson?
born and raised. And I was like, I went to a high school that was out in the sticks. And like, if you ask my parent, like I had a choice. I could have went to like 2 or 3 different high schools. And I won't say the high school after I say this comment, but like back in those days, like I wanted to go to like the sports school. Well, I ended up going to like the ag school that the sports were not so good at. So we always called it Hick High. But I mean, it worked out great for that project, because if I probably would have tried to pull that off at another high school, it probably wouldn't have gone so well.
Yeah.
I also went to a Hick High too. There's a lot of rodeo going on in my high school. Yeah.
I went to a bougie high school. Yeah.
Oh, that's good stuff. Good
in
stuff.
Scottsdale.
So what you're saying now is teachers no longer want the apple left on the desk, but rather
the pint.
A pint.
The pint. Right. Yeah. Yep.
I like that.
Dude, that's such a cool story, man. And then you made it your job.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did did a little bit of schooling for chemical engineering, and decided I want to make beer, and this is what I'm going to do with it. Like,
that's so cool.
I don't need to go refine oil.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to go make beer, and that's what I ended up doing.
And to go with that refining oil part of it, now you guys are working on making your beer sustainable in some way, and that you have your spent grain is being used by cattle farmers in Eloy.
Yep.
And then you're working on getting the water reused into agriculture. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have a very small municipal wastewater treatment plant that I'd say is about a half mile away.
Okay.
And they didn't have the ability to treat our water. So in brewing water, you have a very high concentration of biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. So what happens is those microorganisms, sorry if we're like nerding out a little bit.
I love it.
But like those microorganisms in those plants need to be able to feed on those food structures on the wastewater that's coming in. Well, when that wastewater requires a ton more oxygen than anything else in there, those bugs literally get suffocated and they die.
Got it.
So that treatment plant was not big enough to be able to sustain that. So, mind you, we had already ordered equipment. We're pouring concrete, and now we have nowhere for our wastewater to go. So we're like bottom of the ninth trying to figure it out. And again, I'm scrambling. I'm looking. I'm looking at stuff that's like, I'm like, this is crazy. This can be stupid expensive to do this. And then the VP of Food and Beverage, my boss, George Atwell, finds this company out of Australia called BioGill. So we get these guys involved, and we're like, okay, we might be able to pull this off for like a quarter of the price. And these guys have been doing this on islands around the world for resorts that have nowhere for their water to go because they're on an island in the middle of nowhere, and they're treating it all the way to like A+ effluent. So like, I'm a chemistry guy. I don't know anything about wastewater at this point. So like, God bless my wife, because like I was up until like I couldn't even tell you what time of the day. And same thing with like George, trying to figure out what we were going to do and how to design this thing, get it figured out, and what we needed to get ordered and do this to get everything done. So we had it pretty close. And then we reached out to another company out in Vermont called Champlin and Associates. And Dave Crawford is the owner out there, and he helped us get this thing fully designed inspect to what our wastewater was going to be coming out of the brewery. So our goal right now is the effluent that we have right now gets pre-treated. It's pre-treated, and any treatment plant can take it very easily. That gets hauled up to a Robeson treatment plant up here in Phoenix. But ultimate goal is to get our aquifer protection permit, do final treatment, and then discharge that into the irrigation canal that's about, 100 yards away from the brewery.
No kidding.
And then that'll feed all the farm fields all around the brewery. So that's the goal. So breweries use a bunch of water. We've cut our effluent probably more than half of what 90% of the breweries around the nation do for cleaning and what their wastewater discharge actually is. So we're trying to be as, mindful as we can, especially with Arizona getting cut way back on the CAP project. I mean, we see what Lake Mead's doing. We see what Lake Powell's doing. So we're trying to be mindful of the environment, and the more we can give back, the better.
I love that. And I love that that's such a, I mean, not everybody is going through those lengths, but I feel like it's a theme in the craft brewing community of like, how can we be as environmentally conscious as possible? And I love that you guys are, I mean, you're in Eloy, which is a farm town.
Yep.
And, you're using your spent grain for those, for the cattle and everything out there. And now you're going to get your water involved as well. I think that's so cool. So cool.
Yeah, put it back to where it came from.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we've been kind of preaching. So
love it.
Hopefully we can get all the way to that point. It's going to take some work. I mean, you would think the state would make it a little bit easier.
Sure.
But I mean, it is what it is. But we'll get through it.
Well, man, do we have any more beers to go through? Because I feel like I've loved all of them.
People keep walking by our door behind us here, and they're like, we've got like 20 beers on the table.
They think we're all drunk, but
what's going on in there? Josh, it's been awesome getting to know you, getting to chat with you. We appreciate you coming up all the way from Eloy or Tucson, I guess, and bringing us these. That IPA. Hey, you got another A right there.
Oh yeah, that IPA is. I'm not usually a West Coast IPA guy. When you said the Sierra Nevada thing, like that,
it clicked.
Yeah, because that's very much their style. Like it's got that maltier backbone. It's balanced. I think that's what I always look for in an IPA is like the balance between the hops and the malts. Where I think a lot of like you were saying, a lot of people for a long time we're just trying to make the maltiest or the hoppiest, just puckeriest thing, and that's where I kind of decided I didn't like IPAs. And then, so this is very much what I look for in an IPA.
I love that too, and it probably does it really well because he just brewed these like the day before. He canned them the day before, so they're super fresh, super good. Look for Ranch Hand beers at Total Wine. Where else can people find your beers, Josh?
So like Tucson's our main market right now.
Sure.
Jake Olson just started up here in Phoenix about 2 weeks ago. So I know Sugar Bar's got beer on right now.
Down in Chandler,
Pint.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then Casual Pint's they're on at the one, what do you want to call it, downtown?
Kind of like Camelback and 16th Street area.
So the beer's doing really well there. So now their other location wants it.
Ocotillo, yeah.
Yep. And then Get and Run, which is I think that's like a gas station convenience kind of place. They're doing really well there.
Where's that at? Do you know?
That's in like so we kind of have him in like the Chandler, Gilbert, Ahwatukee, Queen Creek area right now.
Yeah, the Get and Run I think is in that Gilbert area.
Is that the one on Cooper and
I think
Warner?
It's one of those really popular ones.
Gilbert and Warner
that carries a lot of craft beer. So if you get in there, you're doing well there. So yeah,
I love that place.
Yeah. So, but I mean, we're growing pretty good in Phoenix right now. So
yeah, man.
But we will not overpromise accounts and underdeliver.
Yeah.
So I know there's a few accounts in the Valley that have reached out, and we've literally had to tell them no. When we get to the point where we can distribute to that area, you can absolutely have it. But I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to get you beer and then call you the day before or the day of and go, sorry, man, like not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to do that. Just like I'm not going to put out an inferior product.
Sure.
So, like I said, right now we're kind of just focused in that like southeast Phoenix market. And then the plan is to kind of just go straight north with it and then start moving west.
That's nice for us because I live in Gilbert and he lives in Mesa. Yeah. And so I'm psyched.
Yeah, I can
that your beer is so accessible to me.
The Total Wine at Tempe Marketplace all the time, and go up the bourbon aisle, and there's nothing there that excites me. And then go down the beer aisle, I'm like, bam, there's more and more ranch. And I think when you first came out, it was the IPA, maybe another one, but it was mostly the IPA. And then last time I went there, it was boom, all the different styles.
Well, here's the thing though, is like all 5 brands have always been in Total Wine from day one, but they move. And it's not just like, okay, 1 or 2 brands are moving. Like depending on the demographic of where that Total Wine's at is dependent on what beers are moving in that area. And it's crazy to see it on a map because you're like, why are these 3 moving like crazy here? And then like these 2 or 3 are moving crazy over here. You know, like hazy is the one that moves everywhere, obviously. But like the other 4 brands, it's like, okay, like Blonde and Pilsner do really good over here. Amber and West Coast do really good over here.
I wonder if it has to do with the other craft breweries that are available in those areas and what they typically specialize in. Yeah, and then the people, like Gilbert's got a pretty good spread. We have Oso. We have, Oso does all kinds of stuff, especially in the barrel aged, like heavier stouts and barley wines and things. But then we also have like 12 West, which is very much into the hazies and the IPAs. And then you got like Desert Monks, which is doing a lot of like, their Martzens and their like kind of maltier beers, right? And so maybe depending on in each region what the craft breweries that are there make, it kind of affects the flavor preferences of the people in that area. And so then that's what, when they go to a place like Total Wine, that's what they look for.
I mean, that's a really good point. And I think, like we've actually talked about this at the brewery and it's like, okay, maybe it's like an age demographic because like at Saddlebrook Ranch, we have that age demographic and like your lighter maltier beers do really well there.
Right.
But like when we were distributing in the town, like those hoppier and sour and I mean, every other style that wasn't doing good there did really well there. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it just depends on what the demographic is on what part of town the beer's in. But
I know my father-in-law, my wife and her family are from the St. Louis area. Budweiser is the king, right?
Yeah.
So my father-in-law is very much into those lighter, and so is my mother-in-law, much, lighter beers. Whereas the younger generation, I'm going to include you in this because
I appreciate
you're part of that. Yeah. You're welcome.
Young at heart.
We're more adventurous. We certainly like more, hoppier beers. I had my mother-in-law try a hazy the other day, and she looked like she was in pain.
Pucker up.
Yeah, and I was like, "This is so good." So yeah, it's got to be a combination of things, but I would imagine that whatever breweries are available locally have some effect on the general palate of the people that live in that area, because that's what they're drinking, at least more readily than maybe,
That's why when you go to like Ballast Point in San Diego, there's like 12 different West Coast IPAs on tap. So
yeah.
Like what's the difference between this one tastes a little bit more like pineapple here. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of adventurous, I had the from Aslan beer. Where are they out of? Like DC or Delaware or whatever. A beer called Johann Buys a Brot. And it had your name on it.
What?
It was one of the best beer. It was like this milkshakey, very orangey beer that like pineapple. Oh my god!
You know what I love?
So good.
So everywhere I go,
but
there's
it's called Johann.
I know. I love that.
You need to get it.
Everywhere I go that has like souvenir stuff, there's with names. There's never a Johann.
No. Really?
The fact that there's a beer with my name on it.
And you apparently buy a broat, which Urban Dictionary defines it as
a boat,
a bunch of bros on a boat. So you apparently bought one of those.
I don't know how to feel about that, but
the idea,
I mean, I do like a good boat day.
Yeah,
but,
the idea is a little sus, but the beer is really, really good. So, and that's a very popular like seasonal one. So you may not be able to find it anymore, but I had it. It was good.
Right on.
And obviously we had a ton of Ranch Hand. We're going to have more Ranch Hand at the Arizona Craft Beer Awards Festival coming up in October.
Yes,
right?
Yes, definitely. So for everyone watching, if you don't know, which if you're watching this, you probably already do, but we are putting on the Arizona Craft Beer Awards and Festival. The festival itself is October 22nd at Heritage at Sportsman's Park, which is out at the Cardinals Stadium. Really, really cool venue. Very excited to be there. And then we are working with the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild to put on the inaugural Arizona Craft Brew Beer Awards, which is a AGBF style awards focusing on Arizona beers. We have over 120 submissions into that. We're judging next week. So we're very excited about that. And we're going to have a party to celebrate that on the 22nd. And Ranch Hand will be there. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, we'll be there. And then if we've got any Arizona residents that decided they wanted to buy tickets for Great American Beer Fest, we also have a booth at Great American Beer Fest this year. From 6 through the 8th. So if you're from Arizona, come and see me. I'll be at the booth. I'd love to talk to you.
I don't know, Matt. We might have to make this a business expense, a business trip to go up to AGBF, just because
it's probably in the budget.
GABF.
Yeah, I could talk GABF. I could talk to the to our VP about it. She might be able to find some pennies in the budget for us. So
you need ideas for the AZ GABF.
Yeah,
we do.
The ACBA.
I've heard good stories about the events that go around GABF. You know, like Avery has good events. All those breweries up there in the Colorado area host these really, really extravagant and wild.
It's like an Arizona Beer Week, but like
for sure
with it's the Super Bowl of beer.
Why can't we do that in Arizona?
We will.
Let's do it.
That's our goal with the Arizona Craft Beer Awards and Festival, and we're really, really excited that Ranch Hand is a part of it.
Yeah. We should mention too that our latest issue of Phoenix Magazine is on the shelves, on the stands, all centered around beer, and so it's a beautiful issue. It's really well written. It's really, really cool. Basically divides the state into different regions and gives a suggested brewery crawl for each region. So highly recommended to go check it out. It's a beautiful issue. So
it's a good issue. Had a lot of fun doing. I covered the Mesa section, East Valley. I wrote about Mesa because downtown Mesa is my favorite crawl there. And there's so many great craft beer destinations in Arizona.
Yeah.
Ranch Hand obviously adds to that.
We didn't cover everybody because there's so many, but hopefully we'll do this more often.
You're doing your thing down in Eloy, and you're kind of one of a kind now down in Eloy. So hopefully
you're crushing it, man.
You guys keep crushing it, and we're going to see you at the Craft Beer Festival on October 22nd out in Glendale. Make sure to get tickets at azcraftbeer.com, and we will see you there.